Okay, we're going to start on the deck side of the house. Go ahead and open up your browser, and we are going to go to a URL, and we are going to grab the Daphne emulator. So we go to tinyurl.com/singedeck, made it nice and easy for you. There'll be links in the descriptions below. We're not going to accept the default, that's too hard to type. We're just going to type in Daphne and hit save, and that will save the Daphne emulator down to your downloads folder. And you can see there it is. And let's go ahead and go to home, and let's see if we've got an applications folder, which we do. If you don't, we'll be creating one in the next step, but knowing that we have it is half the battle. Go ahead and open up the console. We're going to have to get our hands dirty with the keyboard a little bit. Go to CD tilde. That just sort of makes sure you're sort of in the home directory. And then we're going to go ahead and attempt to make the directory applications, just in case you didn't check. It already was there, so it's no big deal. Just a reminder, everything is case sensitive, right? So applications lowercase is not the same as applications uppercase. But you can see that there were files in there if we did an ls on that. So we know that we've got it already. So now we're going to go ahead and change into, if I could type right, we'll change into the CD applications folder. Obviously I can't type either. And then we're going to execute the tar command to decompress the Daphne file we just downloaded. And again, this will all be in the description so you can cut and paste. And once again, I see a typo that again helps to remind us that you must absolutely use the proper syntax and upper and lower case. So we'll go ahead and try this again. Boom. You can see everything extracted. Yep, everything is there that we need. So we can go ahead and get out of here. We'll go into applications there. We'll double check and make sure that it looks good. Excellent. So the emulator's there and we are good to go on this side of the house. Let's move over to the PC. Okay, so in this tutorial, we're going to assume that you're SSHing from your PC over to your deck so we can copy some files over. Obviously, if you haven't done this already, you can do it with my tutorial right here. Take you just a couple minutes to get set up. If you have some other means of moving files over, you're sort of on your own. We're also going to be using Directory Opus. This is the ultimate file manager for Windows. You can download a free trial. The reason that we're using this is because, as you'll see in a moment, it gives us a few features that normal file managers don't, and it will give us a big advantage in doing tasks just like this one. Okay, so our next location is Lair to go, tiny URL, and we're going to download this file. This is 12 gigabytes, folks. And it's coming from a very slow source. So you can expect this to take upwards of 4 hours. And I will make sure I put in the description that you might want to start this long before you attempt to do this tutorial because it's going to be frustrating waiting around to do that. But we can do some stuff in the meantime. We're going to download Lair Helper off tinyurl. And Lair Helper, this is a helper pack that I put together to save you a ton of manual labor. We're going to go ahead and download that. That's a little tiny thing. So we have the helper pack ready to go. And we're going to go ahead and pretend that we've already downloaded that big giant 12 gigabyte file so we can continue with the tutorial. Now, one of the things that Directory Opus will allow you to do is to have two different areas here. One at the top for like a source and the bottom is a destination. You can see here I've SSH'd already. And I'm on my SD card in the emulation ROMs folder, and I'm looking for Daphne. There's nothing in there. At the top, we've got the helper pack and the other zip file. Now, because we're in Directory Opus, we don't have to do this whole extract bit. We can double click on the zip, and it will open it like a folder. So now we can drill into this folder, and we are looking for a particular folder in here, VLDP, ACE, and Lair are the two folders we need out of here. And something else that Directory Opus will let you do is do something called copy as. So we're going to do a copy as, and instead of copying it over as ACE, we're going to call it ace.daphne. Now again, you could copy this over with a regular file manager and rename it yourself, but Directory Opus is going to save us some time and effort. So that one is currently copying. We can go ahead and copy as Lair to lair.daphne to the same folder. Now, one of the neat things about Opus is it uses a queuing system. So while the current copy operation is going on, I have another copy operation queued and ready to go when that one's done. You see how this could be helpful, right? If you have to copy a lot of stuff over, you can go get a sandwich while everything copies over. So while we're waiting for this to happen, we can still do some other stuff. So let's go to our helper pack, go into that zip file, and you're going to see that there's two files for each side, ACE and Lair, as well as a hyper input INI file. So let's go ahead and take care of that INI file first. Let's go to the Home, Deck, Applications, and we're going to go into that Daphne emulator, and there's the hyper input INI. We're going to copy it straight over. It queued it, but we're going to force the queue by hitting this little play button, and then we're going to overwrite it. So we're going to replace it. All right, great. So now that piece is done, we can move on. We can now copy the ROMs over. So go back into that giant zip that you downloaded, go to Daphne, go to ROMs, and grab ace.zip and lair.zip, and copy those to the ROMs folder. Now again, it's queued, so we're just going to enforce the queue. They're tiny, tiny files. Now they're copied over. Great. So now we've just got those two big giant files still copying over. So I'm thinking, let's see, what else can we do here while we wait? Okay, let's go back. Let's go back to our SD card where we're copying these big giant files. And each one of these folders that we are copying over needs to have a couple of extra files in them for everything to work right. So we're going to go right back into that ROMs Daphne folder. Go into that ace.daphne, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to copy the two files from the helper pack that we need. We're going to copy those over. Again, it queues. We're going to force the queue to play because they're tiny. Great. Now we have those commands. Now, there is no Lair folder over here yet, so we can't really copy these Lair commands over until the next copy queue item happens. So we're going to go ahead here and let this finish up. And we've got, as you can see, we've got almost 4 minutes left. So let's go ahead and time compress this for you a little bit. Once the next job in the queue starts, it'll create a folder for that lair.daphne, and we can move the other two commands and Daphne files we need to move over that. All right, so this is almost done here now. And as soon as it goes to the next copy job, it will go ahead and make that folder for us. Almost there. Okay, the folder has been created. You can see it down below. So we can go ahead, now that that's finishing its long copy job for another 8 minutes, we can go ahead and go into the lair.daphne and copy our two files from the helper pack into that folder. Once again, it gets queued. We're going to go ahead and force that queue to play. So now the files, I lost connection on my deck here for a moment. So we got the files, and they're going to go ahead and copy over. Great. So really, all we have to do now is wait. We just have to wait for this lair.daphne folder to copy over. And if you're getting a little bit lost because I'm sort of multitasking here, we're going to do a wrap up here just to make sure before we go on that everything is what it is and is in the right spot, and we'll go over again what exactly it is that we did. So, you know, while we're waiting, before this Lair job finishes, this copy job, hype input is the controller configuration file. Now, I spent hours remapping buttons, trying to figure out which buttons corresponded to what key press. So what you needed was a number, and I went ahead and I found all of those numbers for you. So these are all the keys from the deck, or the buttons from the deck that it understands, and those have to correspond with each of these control items. So coin 1, start 1, the fire button, all of these things I have all mapped accordingly by these buttons. So if you decide you want to change out these buttons, you can, and the list of all the buttons are right here. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and time compress the rest of this copy. There's nothing really more for us to do. Okay, so the copy is finished up here. I think it's time for us to recap. So we've got these two new folders here that we copied, and inside of each one we have these two commands that we added. Sometimes the SSH caches a little bit. There we go. So now you can see everything. All right, and in Lair we have the same situation. The folders are copied with the two additional files copied over from the helper packs. So we are in good shape there. There are those files as well. Okay, and then we also, over on the emulator folder on the deck. We also replaced the input file right there, so that's good. We replaced the input file and we added the 2 ROM files to the emulator folder. So I think we're pretty much done here on the PC side. I think it's time to go over to the deck and let's check out the fruits of our labor, shall we? Returning to Dolphin on the deck, we can go over to our emulation folder, ROMs, and Daphne, just to make one more check that those 2 properly named folders are there, and they are. So I think now we're just ready to run Emulation Station. So I'll launch Steam. I don't know why it was closed, but ask no questions. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and run Steam, and then we are going to launch Emulation Station. Now, if you've done everything right, you will see Daphne now available under Emulation Station. If not, you probably forgot to copy those 2 little helper files into the ace.daphne and lair.daphne folder. All right, so let's go scroll over, and there she is. Now I've got the metadata already. I already scraped those earlier. I'll show you real quick how to do that. Just go to Scraper, scrape these systems, choose Daphne Arcade Laserdisc Emulator, scroll back down to back, and then go to Start. And as you can see, it will go and scrape Dragon's Lair. And it will, by the way, you don't have to rename anything. Sometimes with the scraper, you have to rename the files into something the scraper recognizes. But Lair and Ace are 2 things that the scraper for Daphne definitely understand. I think it's time to play. Enough of this nonsense. Let's play some Dragon's Lair. Well, a little bit of Dragon's Lair, shall we? It has to parse the video file the first time through. You'll only see this once for each game. All right, and there's the current configuration. If you want to toggle the scoreboard at the top on and off, just tap the R3 or the right analog stick in, and that'll toggle that on and off. Couple of coin ups, and then we will hit start. And let's just play a scene or 2, shall we? You'll notice these are not the HD remastered copies. These are, in fact, the original Laserdisc dumps that have been kicking around for like a decade. All right, let's just let him die. Bye, Dirk. Okay, so you see Dragon's Lair works fine. Let's move over to Space Ace. And again, it parses the video file. No big deal. Like I said, it only happens once. All right, and here is the controller configuration here. The only difference here is when you hit start after coining up, you'll hear this beep, 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 beep. It wants you to choose a skill level, 1 through 3. X, Y, and B are the skill level buttons. And again, you can hit the R3 to toggle the scoreboard on and off. And the fire button also works as energized when you see the prompt on the screen. Great game, love that game. All right, well, that's it. Listen, you got Dragon's Lair and Space Ace up and running. You can do the same thing with the other games. Just follow the similar steps. I'm Shane R. Monroe. Thanks, as always, so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and take care.